When I was 12 years old, I was hanging around with a group of friends from my church, and we were breaking into places like breaking into the water tower and smoking up top, and breaking into the pool and swimming and drinking and smoking. And I, had a life change at that point, and I'm like, wow, I really need to have different friends because I knew myself well enough to know that if I hung around with these friends, then I'd do what they would do. And if I didn't want to do that, I had to have a different group of friends, which was super hard for me at like 12 or 13, a very difficult choice. And it was, lonely, painful, but in the end, really worth it because it's very difficult to not do the things your friends are doing, a group of friends, and it's something to evaluate. So we're doing a series called The Flip Slide of Friendship. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about the amazing benefits of friendship, to be seen, to be able to be vulnerable and to witness each other and to really, hold a container of love and friendship is so powerful for healing, for just intimacy, for joy, so many things. And so we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Last week, we talked more about being a friend to ourselves because it's very difficult to be friends to others and offer others if we're not giving it to ourselves. And I sometimes think, especially someone like me who kind of aligns with more of being, used to be a people pleaser and still working on that, is that, if I'm not being that friend to myself, if I'm not loving and supporting myself, respecting my opinion, making room for myself, then it's much more difficult to have satisfying and wonderful friendships and ones of equality. So last week we talked about how do we, again, a reminder of how do we love ourselves? How do we like ourselves? And trust me, we're not going to always like everything about ourselves. And that's just the human experience because guess what? We know ourselves better than we know anyone else. And as humans, we have all sorts of emotions and thoughts and, we're all a little messy and that's just part of life. So just being friends with ourselves. And this week we're talking about the harm of unhealthy friendships. And the reason why it's a flip slide is because it's not usually black or white. It's usually a slide of a gray scale. And but our brains always want black or white. It's either healthy or it's unhealthy. And friendship is good or it's bad. But very much, it's really a slide. So we're doing the flip slide. So yes, healthy friendship, we typically want some equality, equity, some mutual love and respect. And that's kind of the basis of it. And to be able to feel seen and safe. Like being safe in a friendship is super important. And then you want shared friendship values. And everybody's friendship values are a little bit different. So it's good to know like what your friendship values are. And for me, I really like friends that we can build each other up. And that means we have the ability to celebrate each other's wins. Because I really enjoy that. I enjoy celebrating my own wins, which that that was a whole process to even learn to be able to do that. And celebrating others' wins. Because that's just how we flower differently and how we just grow differently. I also like friends that'll tell me the truth. Because I have to be honest. Sometimes, I see things the way I see things. And having someone to give another perspective can be super helpful, or point out a blind spot lovingly can be super helpful. But unhealthy friendships are closer to the opposite. I would say the biggest thing is it's not equality and it's not like love and respect. There's definitely a differential. There's a differential of time and energy being put in, of just love and respect. And so that's one thing that's really good to evaluate is how mutual is this? But there's all sorts of things that aren't as helpful in friendship and kind of lean towards a more unhealthy friendship. And sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's not clear. So how do you even know? Well, there's 3 things. First of all, you will feel it. I feel like we'll feel it before we'll even understand it a lot of times. And I find this to be super common for me. It's like, whoa, that just doesn't feel right regularly. Maybe I don't feel loved, or I don't feel seen or held, or they're just not showing up. Or another thing I notice is if I'm exhausted after each interaction, then that's like that's a yellow flag. What's going on there? I feel like the obvious ones are if there's guilt and manipulation, but sometimes manipulation isn't so obvious, and that's why it is manipulation. And sometimes there's subtle control. But some things that are probably less obvious that can be really harmful in a friendship long term is comparison. Like if one friend is always comparing herself to you and down either, just feeling bad about herself, that is not healthy for a mutual equal friendship, or vice versa. If I'm chronically comparing myself to her and either feeling like, gosh, I really don't measure up, or I'm better than her, either way, it's not helpful. And so comparison is one that doesn't help in friendship, because we use it against ourselves, or we use it to to hurt others. It's just not helpful. Another one is gossip. Like gossip is, you want to confide and have someone you can confide in, but there's something different about, gossip. Regularly talking bad about other people is, especially bad about people you both know. Like that can be really not healthy on any sort of friendship. And it can be like super addictive, because there's something in us that likes to be the one that's like, basically trusted in to share whatever. But the truth is, if I'm gossiping with my friend or something like that, you can be sure they're gossiping about me to somebody else, because it is an addictive thing. Gossiping is very addictive because it kind of feeds our our pleasure center. So that's one that doesn't help. Also, I remember I was in a group of friends, and I couldn't quite nail it down for a while, but I kept feeling like this not so good feeling whenever this person would comment. My girlfriend would comment something. And later I figured out what she was doing was giving me little digs, like little insults, or little say it with a smile, but it was really a dig. And that didn't feel good. And again, that was hard to notice, but I felt it. So that's probably the first thing that'll tell us something's off, is you feel it. And sometimes, if you're good friends, you could call it out. It's like, this feels kind of different, or this is feeling like I'm not feeling supported and I'd like to talk to you about it. And that'll bring us to one of the other questions, or one of the other ways we know if it's healthy or leaning towards the unhealthy, is being able to repair and all that. So first of all, you will feel it if it's going towards the flip slide of unhealthiness. Are you feeling stuck in with love, wealth, or peace? Well, you're not alone. Often it's a subconscious belief holding you back. That's why I combined life coaching and hypnotherapy together, so you can break through what's been keeping you stuck. Life coaching helps you shift your mindset, while hypnotherapy works deep within to reprogram limiting beliefs and memories. It's fast, it's effective, typically one session of each, and I have a few openings left. Are you ready for a change? Visit livebrighter.info and book your free consultation and see if this approach is right for you. See you then. Second, it brings out what you don't want in you, because we all have things about us, and we can hang around with different groups of people or different people, and it's either going to bring out the things that we want to bring out, or it brings out things that we're like, that doesn't really align with me, and I really don't like how I show up around these people or around this friend. And that's something, that we're all guilty of. I was, around a new friend, it's a couple of weeks ago, but it was really interesting because I totally did something that I would think was really terrible. And it was just, she had brought up something about another realtor, and she didn't mention that person by name, because that would have been even worse. But rather than being professional in that state, I definitely, was a little bit critical about how the realtor experience, because I'm a realtor. Anyways, I look back on that and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to show up that way. So I'm just something to watch out for in my own self. It's like, yeah, I'm going to watch out for that, because that does not feel good to me and I do not want to show up that way. But we're all guilty of it. But if it's a chronic thing where it's you're around them and it's bringing out things you don't want, you're not in alignment, then it's worth a conversation, or worth just kind of deciding where in the sphere as a friendship that person needs to be. And it's not sometimes you do need to cut people out completely, but sometimes it just takes a little distance, and sometimes friendships flow closer and farther, like we talked about in healthy friendships a couple weeks ago, and that's just part of it. So I really trust that you'll know best what's right for you. And the third one, how do you know it's going towards the unhealthy, is you can't be honest. If you can't be yourself or be honest, then there's a problem. Either like I'm not being honest with myself, so I can't be honest with others, or there's something hindering me from being honest. And maybe it's on my side and maybe it's on, their side, but not being able to be honest and show up honestly is a big yellow flag. Like something's off there. Or, with that, I can't repair. I can't honestly be like, hey, I know you didn't mean it, but that didn't feel good. And this is why it didn't feel good. And if they're not willing to listen to that at all, or not willing to repair or hear another person's side, that's a really key part of friendship, because honestly, it's two different people and I'm going to hurt them, I'm not meaning to, and they're going to hurt me, but we can't read each other's minds. So we really have to be able to be honest and be like, yeah, I kind of took this like wrong and I'd like to talk to you about it and just see, try to understand this a little bit better. I think, always going into it with understanding that we see things through our own lens. And so we probably don't have all the facts. I always say that 90% of conflict is misunderstandings. And so finding out if it is a misunderstanding. But the ability to be honest and being able to repair is super important in healthy friendships. So those are the three things that I would say that on the flip slide is if you're starting to feel like it just feels off, like regularly, that's a yellow flag to investigate and be like, what's going on here? Two, if you can't, it doesn't bring out part of you it's bringing out parts of you that you're like, yeah, that really doesn't align with me. It's a good thing to question and look into. And three, if we can't be honest and repair, then that's worth investigating too. And I always tell all of us in this podcast, one of the most important things in this podcast is not that, prescriptions and this and that, is that we all get more in touch with ourselves. And, we're made in the image of God. So we've got that God part of us. And then we have the Holy Spirit if we're Christians, and really listening to that and being intentional of connecting with that in order to understand things. Because there's a lot of things that, on the surface, we're like, I can't really figure it out, but there's something in our spirits that's not aligning and something worth investigating. And so unhealthy friendships can cause a lot of stress and depression, low self-worth. Like if they're constantly digging at you, or they're constantly like just not supportive, that can really impact us as people. And it really, unhealthy friendships could really decrease our capacity of enjoying life. And, it's really good to know, I really believe that the people we're closest to, or we choose to be closest to, we really should be building each other up. Like it really should be good things for both of us. And so, like if it's regularly causing stress and depression and lower self-worth and are decreasing our capacity in life, that is a big yellow flag. Our first responsibility is to take care of ourselves. Like that is our first God-given command, is like, love me and then take care of this body, mind, and spirit that I gave you. So that is our first responsibility. And that goes before family, it goes before friends, it goes before that. And that's not selfish. That is like our responsibility to take care of that. And so if it's regularly affecting our health or mental health or anything like that, we have to make sure that we listen to the subtle signs of that rather than listening to the screams of our body afterwards, like, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And then you get stuff like depression, anxiety, different things, because it's, suppressed feelings, suppressed things, they come out. They don't stay suppressed. So sometimes we have to make a friendship gap, just to leave room for, good and healthy friendships. And I'm sure we've all heard this by now, that we're basically the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I feel like that is really true. And it's good, honestly, to kind of do a friendship audit every once in a while and just intentionally decide, like, where do I want to put my energy? And is it authentic? Like, are these, is it mutual friendships, or where do I want to put my energy? And just be a little intentional about it. And that is always helpful. So just take a pause. I always like to end with, like, we've got so much information going on in our lives. I think having spaces to hear ourselves is one of the most valuable things we can have. So we're just going to take a pause and just take a deep breath in, a belly breath in. And Breathe out. And just take a deep breath in and breathe out slowly. And I would ask you, is there a friendship that comes to mind where you're like, it's not feeling as healthy? And then just spend some time and decide, is that person somebody I need to talk to about this or distance? I think if you really care about someone, you're willing to do the uncomfortable thing and talk to them. And then also, like, as we're pausing, just think about a friend that you're like, you know what, I really like that person. I want to get a little bit closer and just take a step in that direction. So make it a great day and make your friendships more beautiful 1% at a time. I believe in you. Talk to you later.